You know, in 97, when Biggie said, "More money, more problems," I remember at the time saying to myself, man, I would like to have those kinds of problems. And not really understanding like what he meant, because obviously I was so far away from, you know, that level of money. But years later, I understood like what he meant. But at the time, home prices were 2.5 times your salary. Now they're 8 times your salary. And this whole thing about money buying happiness and whether it's like BS. I mean, as far as like whether it does or it doesn't, I just want to call it out, because I do think it's total BS that money doesn't buy happiness. I do think that there is some happiness tied to money. So let's get into it today. And of course, rewinding many years ago, working on those mayonnaise sandwiches growing up. I mean, when I say mayonnaise sandwich, I mean, it was just mayonnaise and bread. Not the best bread either. We're not talking Wonder Bread. And of course, you know, my wife shared stories, you know, when she was young and living in a bigger city, eating stovetop stuffing out of a pot, you know, and how far we've come. Because ultimately, then eventually you get to a point like where you can add some sort of questionable meat. And gravy is a camouflage. It really is. So definitely utilize it when you need it. And as you can tell, if you've been around the channel, we're doing something a little bit different today. I used to vlog, loved it. But, you know, the fact that I have a handful of viewers and subscribers, which I'm totally thankful for, I really am. I'm grateful for all of your attention here. But I wanted to get back to some of my roots and just see how this plays out as we kind of talk about this money and happiness thing. And as I'm kind of looking around, I'm keeping my head on a swivel, which you should always do in life. But I'm just kind of like looking out for bears. There have been sightings, not so much in this area, but where I was actually going to go this morning. So we want to stay out of the way. So if you actually see one behind me, let me know it's not AI. But hey, I should say, if this is like your first time finding me, a little bit of context here is, yeah, I was a kid that grew up on food stamps, free lunches. My mom got really, really sick. I mean, so sick. And the diagnostics today are a lot more advanced than back then. Couldn't figure out what was going on with her. No real good treatment plans. And it was so hard for her to hold down a job. And I remember that pain, that frustration, and just kind of like what's next, because it was just the two of us. So, I mean, I applaud her for making every effort, but that's kind of the place that I came from. And I know as much as she was trying to do her best, it was a motivating factor for me to say, like, listen, I don't want to live like this. I got to figure out my move so that I don't have to, you know, live like this. But as a healthcare professional, I am watching families lose so much of their livelihoods, their homes, jobs. Well, usually the job first and then the homes. It's not right. It's rigged. Something wrong with it. But also the fact that even in the last 5 years, your purchasing power has decreased by 25%, or rather the prices by 25%. This whole 2.9 CPI, nah, your money is losing value fast. So I'm sure you've heard that $75,000 threshold where the correlation between income and happiness plateaus. Well, in 2025, and really probably beyond, that is not the case anymore. Especially, like I said, as the money printing continues and the dollar is devalued. And honestly, since 1970, like this income to happiness, this correlation, I mean, this has been occurring since then because of that separation that is happening. Because it is not equitable as far as the wealth transfer is concerned. The middle class is being eroded really quickly. And so when we talk about that $75,000, it meant something when there was like a true middle class, but there's not. And so talking about that 2.9%, that CPI, again, when we really look at it, those motor vehicle insurance costs, those premiums are going up year over year, more than 2.9%. You've got vet bills going up, 6-7%, like year over year. I mean, you've got people that are having to choose between the care for their animal, which is part of their family, or to euthanize. I know that seems extreme. That's awful. And then, of course, healthcare costs. Now, they haven't jumped, but maybe about 2.8, 3%. That might not seem like a lot, but when you have over 60%, about 65, 66% of people declaring bankruptcy for medical bills, yeah, no, that is not right. That is disgusting. And the thing about healthcare in this country, our citizens need to have coverage. I mean, the fact that, you hear all of this dialogue about, well, we don't want our taxes to go up. We can't subsidize it. We already, pay so much in taxes as it is. And the thing is, you're paying your taxes on your wages and you're paying your health insurance premiums on top of that. So we're already doing it. And the thing about subsidizing is that those individuals that are having to declare bankruptcy or don't have insurance and they're using our emergency services, it's already being subsidized. That's called cost shifting. It is being spread out. So we're already paying for it. And here's the thing. You'll probably hear dialogue about, well, at least we don't have all these long waits in this country for a healthcare provider. I'll tell you what, certain specialists out there, you are waiting for a while. I've got patients that are waiting 6 months to see a specialist. And here's the funny thing. Have you seen those videos where people, the hypocrisy, where individuals are going to other countries to get services because it's cheaper, it's less expensive, yet you come back and you call out the United States no, we can't subsidize, we can't pay more in taxes, we can't, not everybody should have health care as far as our own citizens, ridiculous. As far as that lack of coverage though, it is costing our country because you have less productivity because people are out of work, they're calling out, or they are so sick that they can't work because they can't figure out what's going on with them because they don't have the insurance to go see the provider, or, if they're able to pay out of pocket, which very few people are. I mean, it's an impossible situation, and it's like a loop that we just kind of keep circling, and the problems just keep growing. But see, that is also the problem with our system, is that it's set up for reaction, which is great, but we need to be focusing on being proactive, checking in with people, doing wellness care, not always doing catastrophic care. All right, but let me get off my soapbox because, that's obviously not the only reason why we're here. In that, you've heard those sayings when life was simpler. I remember when we didn't have much and we scraped together whatever, coins we could find in the jar, money that was stashed in the sofa that fell out of somebody's pockets or whatever. And you were able to buy that pizza and it was the best tasting pizza ever. I totally get it. I mean, that was the case. That was for sure the case, except for the fact that when that's your only option and you have a family to feed, nah, that hits different. That's the problem. Yeah, and building on that, I remember my mom, she was in tears for so much of her life. And I mean, that adds decades to your life. But trying to figure out okay, is it going to be the water, the electricity, the gas? Where do we cut back on food? I mean, there was a little bit of assistance back then, but nothing like it is today. And so I remember times where we would lose the electricity, and it could be when it's, in the summer and the AC's off, or, in the winter, trying to figure out well, we got to keep the gas on. We need to keep the water running. Otherwise, everything's going to freeze up. So I remember those times, in the middle of a shower and it getting shut off. And of course, I also know, people are sick of living with roommates, especially as you might be an older adult. And I have actually talked about, we are extending the option for our kids, after they graduate college or whatever it is that they do, they're always welcome to come home, and save a little bit of money, set themselves up. I mean, I don't understand why in the United States, we got to kick kids out at 18 anyway. But that being said, I've shared with you that even when my wife and I met, we were dating, we eventually, I had roommates all the way up until I met her. I've said this before. And we moved in together, and this wasn't a romantic gesture. This was a business decision. But it was a great decision because it helped us in our early marriage to not have to start with high interest debt. It was shoulder day yesterday, and I'm actually holding a full-on rig here. But the whole luxury living thing was that it was almost like non-existent. And today, this whole, like, all of these developers coming in, building these places with like these rooftop like lounges and the pools and the gyms, and definitely go to the gym for sure. But there's so many amenities that most of you probably wouldn't even use them if like you're, young and coming up right now as a professional. But these are systems that are meant, like almost like meant to make you feel like you've made it, like you have some success in your life, and it's keeping you broke because it's ridiculous. And building on that, so our oldest son right now, we're paying almost $1,000 for his portion of the rent. There's 4 of them in this like condo, like with all these amenities. I'm like thinking, like, what? Like, what happened to all of these homes, like in these college towns? I mean, he's in Montana, like this, not in a big city. And so the thing is that we, like, the places that I lived in, built in the late 1800s, I think I mentioned this, like the place that we had with the kitchen carpet, like plush carpet, because we had such gaping holes in the kitchen that went down to the cellar, that was the only way that we could cover it up. And if you stood in that section, like you could sink through down to the cellar. We had one heater, like in the whole house, like in one room that was supposed to heat the whole house. Yeah, not forget it. Like we were all just kind of like bundled up in the winter. Single pane windows, the house like was leaning. I mean, it totally would have been shut down, for sure. But I mean, it's like, where are those places? I mean, that was like some character building stuff. But then you have these developers come in, scraping these places, building these like high-end condos and apartments, or you have people either saying like, well, that's just the market. That's like what the market dictates, or people that the homes have flipped, they've bought them and said like, oh yeah, this will be a great investment. And, property taxes have tripled or like even quadrupled in certain areas, and their mortgages are higher, so they got to cover those costs. And so like that's why you're spending $4,000 or $5,000 for like these college, like even the dumps, $4,000 and $5,000 a month. Nah, I mean that's just not right. Yeah. So, but that's the thing. Going back to like what people say, like, well, it's not going to buy you happiness. Well, the thing is like money will buy you time, because when you're totally not stressed about your money, you're not calculating every purchase, and you're not having to, and I'm all for bargains. I am totally all for bargains. I love coupons. I love coupon codes. I will definitely try to go after them. But like when I go to the grocery store, and that's the thing, like that's where you really see inflation. But if there's something that I want, and I am very picky, because growing up food insecure, I want a certain type of food. Like I invest in myself. I invest in that. That's what I always said when I made it. I'm going to buy whatever food I want. And if it's on sale, great. If it's not on sale, I'm still going to buy it. That's just kind of how I am. And the thing is too, is that money buys you time. It buys you the tools, or giving you the space to be able to get certain things done, or to hire people to do things for you that you don't want to do. But it also buys you the ability to get out of toxic relationships, toxic jobs, toxic living environments. Like, you want to talk about yep, that's happiness right there. You know what's happiness? Let me get you to a spot here, and I will show you. We'll see if we can actually capture it. And then, of course, the happiness here. And of course, yeah, I know, like, oh, another YouTuber telling us, like, yes, he has all this time to be able to take hikes and travel and do all these things and see all these places. Like, no, I have a full-time job. I do. I have a full-time job, like probably plenty of you out there as well. But I do have side gigs. I've got side hustles. I have hobbies. But I have the ability to take the time, well, also to, like, live in a place and have the ability to come out here to do these things. Like, when I want to do them, reasonably speaking. And that's also, it's not the thing, it's not about making you feel bad, it's about motivating you. Instead of doom scrolling through TikTok or whatever video platform and saying like, yes, there are people that are suffering out there. There are people that are living in their cars. I did that at one point in my life, and yeah, it's depressing. It is awful. And it is hard to make it, but that was the whole thing with like the roommates. Like, it teaches you to compromise and work with people and negotiate and say to yourself, what do I have to do to pull myself out of this? It doesn't mean that I was like hating my roommates or hating that situation, but you want the next thing. And I don't mean the Instagram thing. I don't mean that. I don't mean all the stuff and all the toys. I mean the ability to just have the breathing room to say, like, I get to go do that. Like, whether you hang, you have friends who you do it with, or like right now, I'm just kind of by myself doing it on my own. Oof. Had to switch, like I said, shoulder day at the gym yesterday in this rig. I just need to like put up my iPhone and record or something. But that being said, when I was talking about the toxic relationships and the work environments and things like that, that's like actually where money can help you stack skills, be able to create that space, those opportunities, that time to be able to stack those skills. Because I talked about stacking skills. I talked about actually leveling up your game. Like wherever you are, you start wherever it is, you incrementally move up. You don't have to have this rapid acceleration, but you stack one on top of the other, and then you build something to where you are starting to build that financial freedom. Not to mention, like some of those people that they're just miserable anyway. It doesn't matter how much money they have. Like they probably either started out with money or they got money at some point in their lives, but they're just miserable, and they're just kind of stuck in this like boot loop of misery where no Control-Alt-Delete or a Hawaiian shaved ice is going to fix it. And you're just going to have to like let them be miserable, and you just got to like do your thing. All right, we got to get out of here. So as we round out, I just want you to try to focus on the non-material aspects of life, the freedom and the distance and the time that money will get you. Yes, it does buy you happiness. It's not about buying relationships. It's not about buying friendships. It's about putting you in situations that those opportunities will put you into better relationships, better environments, and a better balance. And I understand like what Biggie was saying as far as more money, more problems, especially like when I was a business owner. And yes, the stakes are higher, the losses are bigger. But at the same time, when I look at before all of that and after, I will say like I will have taken the bigger losses, because I had the ability, I had the skill set, I had the know-how to be able, and the grit really, to be able to rebuild from failure. And so like maybe that's just what this is all about. It's just about continuing to stack, continuing to iterate, continuing to distance yourself from toxicity, from an environment that is probably not safe for you, from a job that is probably like mind-numbing or just endless as far as like not filling your cup at all. And I know it's suffocating. You are going to get punched in the mouth so many times. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I want you to get back up. I want you to keep moving forward, keep iterating. And I would really love to know where you are in this process. In the comments section below, hit me up. I would love, and the thing is too, I don't know if I'll do a video like this again, but this is kind of fun for me. It is a lot of work, but looking back at my old vlogs, I was like, yeah, I really love doing that. So anyway, I appreciate your time here on this journey with me, and I am rooting for you. I'm wishing you the best, and I really can't wait to see you on your next level up.